Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. The New Revised Standard Version. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child, and she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in bands of cloth, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. The Gospel of Jesus Christ. Praise be to Christ our Lord. So, the birth of Jesus being fulfilled here, we see the expression starting out in those days. A decree went out from Emperor Augustus. So whenever we see this expression, in the days of this ruler or in those days, this is more than just dating an account. It is also telling the kind of time it is by the personality which it's attached to. So we can know the kind of time by doing a research on the background or the personality which is mentioned. So we see Caesar Augustus mentioned here, Caesar Augustus or Emperor Augustus. Caesar, at that time, Caesar basically see himself as a god. That's how serious it is. It was an oppressive time. Caesar was very oppressive and hard. So it is saying the kind of day it was. It was a time when oppression of the poor was rampant. It is also a time where persons were spiritually dry. It was hard, it was barren, and this was a kind of time in which God had to intervene in sending a forerunner, John the Baptist. So an instruction went out to for everyone to get registered. It's like a TRN, tax registration, to pay their taxes. Now, we can also look at the kind of time. It was such where there was no exemption. We see Joseph and Mary. Though Mary was pregnant, they had to travel to Bethlehem to get registered. So there was no exemption. I mean, maybe today in our country, we perhaps would protest and we could give a lot of reason why we would not go, because we say we have humanitarian rights. But it wasn't so then. It was Caesar's world. It was Emperor Augustus, Caesar. It was his time. It was his world. Him have done. So if he said you must go, you go. So we see that Joseph and Mary, they were obedient and they went. The time came for them to, well, at least Mary to be delivered. There was no place in the inn, maternity ward, and so she delivered in a manger. Manger is a feeding tray for animal, like in a stable, the actual feeding tray that she placed cloth and sponge and so forth in, and gave birth there. Now, that there was no place in the inn, it communicate much. Um, they clearly, Mary was pregnant because I mean she was in the ninth month, so this could not be, it could not be hidden. So it was obvious that she was pregnant, and yet she was told that there was no place. One would want to think, I mean, the natural thing to do. So it says a lot about the kind of time it was. It was an oppressive time and one where there was lack of hospitality, because the natural thing to do is to be courteous to one who is pregnant, and no one was willing to give up their space. Or had they known who it was, they would have made space. They would have made space for him if they knew it was the Messiah, the Son of God. Have you ever gone to a place and persons treat you up or respond to you a particular way until you until they know who you are? I can share that I mean, as pastor, going to maybe visiting a church where the persons don't know me, they respond a particular way until they become aware. So, for example, I may ask them for a program. Oh, it's only 2 leave or it's finished. Until then they found out that I'm either the preacher or I'm actually a pastor. Then all of a sudden a program appear out of nowhere, right? So I'm using that example to say, had they known who it was, they would have probably found space for him. So there was no space for them in the inn. This could also be a statement of their poverty, their socio-economic situation, Mary and Joseph. The fact that they had to ride on a donkey into Bethlehem. Can you imagine? It shows their economic status, because at the time you have horse and chariots, but they could not afford that kind of carriage. That is expensive for their type. So all he had to use was a donkey, which communicates he was not wealthy. So if you are renting your place, you would want to be sure to collect your taxes. So you will give it to the best bidder, the best payer. And if they are not able to pay, that might be a challenge that is coming out right here. Or it could also be that the tax was so high and that all the money they had was to pay the tax, and so there was no money left. Maybe they were not taking credit there, so they could not get the room, right? And it would also, if this was the case, it would say a lot about the time that the emperor Caesar, he was so hard and oppressive that he doesn't only take a portion, but he takes everything, that you don't even have money leave to rent a place to deliver. This was a kind of time. So there was no place for them in the inn because they probably could not afford it. There's no space for their type. They are not in their social class. After all, Joseph was just a carpenter. And at the time, a carpenter was not the best paying job. Maybe like today in 2021, it is a very high status job. But at the time, it wasn't. So we are seeing here socioeconomic issues coming out. There is no place for them in the inn. This was a kind of place, the background to the time in which God was intervening with coming of Jesus.